Oftentimes when using attribute maps, you're going to want to create a specific UV space for that texture map. That way you can maximize the entire 0 to 1 space for your texture. This is going to be accomplished by using the Shave UV linking window, which we're going to explain next. So here's our toothbrush. Let me open up the UV texture editor for this, and you can see here that I've got all of this information shared on this one little space here. So if I select the faces where I'm going to add some bristles, okay, these ones right here, you can see that it's a very small space. So when I create a cut map, I would like to use the entire space here. So first of all, let's create a blank UV space. So if I go up here to UV sets, you notice I have map 1, which is just this basic one that I have laid out. Instead, I'll go to polygons, create empty UV space or UV set, and I'll call it brush tip. We'll create that, and then that's what we'll set it to. So now I have nothing in my UVs, blank set. Now I'll actually go in here to my quick select sets, select brush, and it's just these faces that we have kind of as a preset. You can see them here. Okay. And I'll say create UVs, planar mapping. We'll choose the y-axis and we'll hit project. Okay, so there is our texture space now completely optimized for a map, an attribute map. All right, I'll go ahead and reset this back to map 1. And the reason I'm setting this back to map 1 is so you can clearly see what happens when I add my, my hair to the system. Okay. So let's reselect those faces. You can select the faces, or you can again select the quick select set. And we'll just go to Shave, Create New Hair. And we'll just choose the default. Now, unfortunately, this looks more like a hairbrush hair than a toothbrush. And if this is a toothbrush, it's a very used toothbrush. So let's make some modifications here. First thing that we're going to do is cruise down here to our frizz properties, and we'll remove any of this frizz that's on here. Okay. Next, we'll go in and change the tip color to white, the root color to this light blue here. That's kind of a nice look. And I'll remove this value variation and this hue, both hue and value variation. I'll drop them down fairly low. Okay. Lastly, I want to get rid of this random scale. So we'll crank that to 0. And now in my side view, let's get my hairbrush. Set this with a big brush. We're just going to move all these straight up like this. There we go. And you could scale them down now. That's fine. Okay. So here's my brush. Now, I don't want this huge mass of bristles, so I'll just render this while I talk. Right now what I'm going to get is this kind of mass of bristles that's going to look more like a hairbrush than a toothbrush. So to break that up, I have a cut map that I've made in Photoshop that has a bunch of little circles that will make it look like there are some bristles, a tightly packed group of bristles. Well, let me show you where that is. So I'll open up the attribute map, and I'm going to take this cut map and I'm going to load it right in. We'll just choose File and load in a texture in your source images folder called toothbrush holes. Now, when I load this in, you see it right here. This is the preview. Okay, and if I go to select the shave node and then go to update textures, give it a second, you're going to say, okay, well maybe that's just what the preview looks like. Well, let me go ahead and render this. By default, it's using that initial UV set that we created. So this is something that you really have to be aware of, is when you create an attribute map for your object, it's going to utilize the UV set that's for the object, or whatever the current UV set is. So how can we get around this? Well, right here where it says File 2, that's the cut map that I'm using. I would recommend you rename that to something like cut map file, just so it's easier to see. But for now, I'm going to leave it as it is so I can show you where this shows up. We'll go to Shave, Edit Current, Shave UV Linking. Now, this is going to bring up this window right here. Over here, you're going to see all of your attribute maps that you have loaded in. So here I have File 2, but if I had a density map, it would show up here. Probably File 3. I would definitely want to rename all these if I'm going to be doing this kind of UV linking. But now what I'll do is I'll say, okay, let's take this brush tip, File 2, we'll connect those together. And now when I update this texture, again, you don't have to update, you can just hit render. I like to update just so I can see what I've got here. Now when I hit render, we're going to see some clumping here. And that's going to look that way because we're using a cut map to actually chop out circles in our toothbrush. So there you go. Now, this doesn't have a light in it, so you don't really have any self-shadowing and stuff like that, but you can tell here that it is a very powerful system. So if I wanted to have some hair coming off the side, I could create its own UV map. That way I can get a lot of detail in my cut map and have a full workspace available to me in the 0 to 1 texture space. So that's a quick look at how to use the Shave UV linking window.